Hey guys, Dan Cavallari, slow guy on the fast ride, and I am in the garage. But today I am in the garage alone. Usually my in the garage guests come to my garage, but today's guests, Emily Kachorek and Chris Namba, co-founders of Squid Bikes, are joining me from Sacramento, all the way in California. Guys, thanks for joining me. This is my very first remote in the garage. I'm excited. Thanks for taking a few minutes. I usually start with some pretty intense questions. Are you guys ready for some really intense,
Sure.
difficult, intensely personal questions? All right, well, here we go. Are you ready? Emily, are you a dog person or a cat person?
Both.
Both. Chris, dog person or cat person? Dog, good man. I'm with him. See, I told you these hit right at the heart of who you are, guys. So, Emily, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Chris, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
All right.
Both
See,
has both of us drink our coffee.
and a well-timed sip. All right. Folk or metal?
Ooh, folk.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I'll do folk too.
Folk. Okay. All right. All right. I wasn't expecting that. I'm both on that front. So, all right. Name one non-bike related product you absolutely have to take with you when you go traveling for racing.
Chapstick.
Oh, wow. You knew that right away.
Noise canceling headphones.
Now you guys are both. I'm on the wavelength with both of you on these. These are good.
We have a lot of travel experience.
All right. All right, Emily, name 3 songs on your indoor trainer or pre-race warm-up playlist.
Ooh, I don't have an indoor trainer. Pre-race
Okay.
warm-up. I don't know that I've ever actually made a pre-race warm-up. I had, that's not true.
Is it just whatever sounds happen to hit your ears? Or do you
Yeah, actually, I don't usually listen to music like pre-race.
Okay.
Kind of just like, I feel like there's too much stuff going on.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm not going to have a good answer for that one.
Okay.
Chris?
Chris, you got
I
this?
listen to music pre-race.
You don't?
I'm turning wrenches. I don't like.
I feel like you need to block out everybody else though as much as the athletes do. You're like,
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah,
leave me alone.
I
I'm
feel like
like,
if you had like noise canceling headphones on, where you're like, when somebody comes over to ask you to like check their tire pressure, you're not going to hear them.
Yeah,
exactly.
right. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah. That could be a strategic move for you. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not here. right now.
Exactly.
All right. Well, okay. So those weren't exactly serious, hard questions, but it always offers insight into the people who are in this industry, and we often hear about race results and stuff like that, but who cares? So we want to know who you guys are, and in that vein, you guys are the co-founders of Squid Bikes. Tell me about Squid Bikes. How and why did you guys start Squid, and where did the name come from?
Yeah, that's lots of good questions. I'll start off with that. Squid basically grew out of my kind of individual cyclocross program when I decided to stop racing road and start racing cyclocross. Kind of just gathered some sponsors, put it together, did a year. Chris helped me out as the mechanic on the road. We were we were really hosting kind of free pickup cyclocross races, for lack of a better word, just getting the local community out on a Wednesday night in the summer, once a week to an empty field, come out, ride bikes around the course that we set up, hang out afterwards, drink beer. And that's how I got to know Chris better. And then part of it kind of grew from the fact that the first year I had income generation from selling the kits that I was wearing and we designed. And there was definitely an aesthetic quality that we felt was missing in the bike industry, and in particular with the way bikes themselves looked.
Yeah.
And it a number of things kind of came together, and we're like, all right, well, we could work on funding the race program if we can directly benefit from the marketing that we're doing, but we don't have anything to market.
Right.
What if we have a bike and we market a bike? And that's kind of more or less how I would say that's the condensed version of how we decided to start a company. I'll let Chris take the naming part of that question.
Yeah, we had a short list when we were first having meetings. It was of these qualifiers that we wanted the name to like fit within, and like we wanted it to be like fun and not so serious, like specialized or focus or anything really like that. And we kind of I think had decided we wanted it to be like an animal or something, because then we could make like characters for like the branding. And I think one of the initial like shortlist names was like jellyfish bikes, and then it was like didn't quite fit, and then that pivoted to squid, and then we like looked up that squid is kind of like a euphemism in like motos for like someone who's like kind of a novice or a Fred, and we're like, oh, awesome, okay, we're going with squid. Like,
Nice. Chris, what were you doing before Squid Bikes? Were you just were you wrenching somewhere?
I mean, I worked at like bike shops, so I think I was working at REI at that point, so I was doing skis and bikes still.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
And Emily, you were pro racing. That was your first career. Or no, you were a biologist at some point, right?
Yeah, I got an undergraduate degree in environmental biology, and then I worked in the industry for a number of years, and then decided to go back and get a master's degree in biology, and then started racing full time after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, when you guys started this up, and the race team started to take shape, tell me a little bit about the race team and how did that come about, and how did you find the riders that you found, because they're quite colorful characters themselves.
Indeed. So again, kind of the business grew out of the race team, which was initially just myself for the first year. It was not called Squid. And then when we decided to start Squid and have the company, we wanted to have another racer, kind of like a counterpart to me. So we were like, all right, we have a female on the West Coast. Let's look at all the players that are out there. And came across Anthony Clark, who's on the East Coast, races in the men's category, and was kind of just under the level of having a big contract, but certainly really talented. And by that point was, had a name for himself. People know who he was. He came up through Jeremy Powers' program.
Oh, cool.
And actually that's how he even really started riding cyclocross for sure, was that, have you heard that story, by the way, about how they met?
No.
I'll let Chris tell his story once I finish with this question. But so came across Anthony Clark, and then it was at Colorado Cyclocross Nationals in 2013, I think.
Yeah, sounds right.
That,
13 or 14, yeah.
Yeah, we connected with him, and we're like, hey, we're going to start a bike company. We don't have any bikes yet, but do you want to come ride for us? And that was how we started, a relationship with Anthony Clark, which was kind of funny because by the time we had hired him and, we had signed him and he was going to ride for us, and I don't think I'd ever talked to him at all at this point. We'd exchanged some messages, but it was mostly Pete that had been in direct contact with him. And he came out to help us with our launch, and we had a UCI race that we were involved in putting on here on the West Coast. It wasn't a UCI race at that point, but it became one. And so we flew him out, and he was going to stay at our house. And Pete went and picked him up. He got in at kind of late, 11 o'clock at night or something. And again, I've never met the guy in person. And he comes in the house, and he's pretty hyper, and especially when he gets excited or is a little nervous, and he's kind of like bouncing around, and we show him where he put his stuff and everything, and then literally within 5 minutes he's standing in my kitchen with just boxers on, and that's it. I was like, all right,
got comfortable quick.
Yeah. I guess this is how Anthony Clark's gonna roll. But yeah, he's a great guy, and he's retired from racing still, or not still. He retired in 2019. Yeah, 19 Worlds was his last race.
Okay.
I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Squid, we actually no longer currently have a pro team.
Oh, okay.
Kind of COVID had us bench that a little bit. Anthony had retired. Sammy was looking for something else to do kind of during the off season with COVID. And so we've kind of cycled through a couple other riders since then. Sammy was with us for 4 years, which was fantastic. And the four of us, myself, Sammy, Anthony, and Chris, had about probably at least two full solid seasons that we did in a full international like racing UCI campaign, going to Australia and China and Europe and Japan and all over the US.
All right, so then Chris, you need to tell me about how Anthony and Jeremy.
Oh
Powers
yeah.
met.
So I'll put a disclaimer on I've only heard this story. It's kind of like a big fish story where at this point I have no idea how much is actually true.
That's a good qualifier. I like
that. But allegedly, Jeremy's out on a training ride, and he sees this guy. He's got full sleeve tattoos. He's got no shirt, shirtless shirt or a sleeveless shirt on, jean short cutoffs, big Osiris skate shoes on and flat pedals on this old, I think it was a Peugeot road bike. And the guy's just jamming up a climb, and Jeremy passes him and then looks back. The guy's still there. Drops a couple gears, looks back, still there. And couldn't drop Ant up some climb in Western Mass. And then they later kind of I don't know that I think the thing is that they didn't connect then even. He just recognized okay, there's this character out there.
Sure.
Then after running into him a couple more times, it's hey man, have you ever thought about racing bikes? And Anthony had already raced mountain bikes, but then all of a sudden it was all right, let's bring you on. You've got a motor.
Right.
Go use it.
There was something too about Jeremy was racing for Jelly Belly on the road at that point. And there was something about Anthony rolling up and being nice jelly beans, dude. Just
totally called him Jelly Bean Boy.
Jelly beans on his jersey.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think at that point, I guess Jeremy wasn't a national champion at that point, but, he was clearly a pretty well-established pro cyclist to have this kid with, flat shoes and jorts coming up and making fun of his kid that he probably, took so much pride in getting to that point. It was,
right.
Kind of classic Anthony.
I mean, he called Wout van Aert Bro J. So,
yeah, you should tell that story, Chris.
Just tell Anthony stories.
Spend an hour on Anthony stories.
You can do it briefly. I feel like that's worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a wild story, let's hear it.
I mean, so it was the World Cup in
Vegas.
We're going to packet pickup at one of the fancy hotels, and I'm walking through, and Anthony's just kind of oh my God, all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then we get to the door, and Wout and his entourage are walking up, and Anthony's he's a fast walker.
Yeah.
And he just beelines it, cuts off Woot, slams the door open in front of him. He's got there first, Bro J, and then goes inside. And I'm just sitting there
I love it. I mean, he's just such a colorful character, and it fits so well with your brand. I mean, what a score for you guys.
It absolutely was. I feel Anthony Clark was really one of the key pieces, and I think the brand's kind of growth and traction, especially early on. And everyone that meets that guy just loves him, and he's got so much energy, and he's just such a unique person, especially I feel within the cycling world that's a little bit more, can be very playing within the lines and that kind of stuff. Anthony does not color within the lines.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about that in just a moment for sure. Yeah. But I mean, and you mentioned COVID, and it's it's unavoidable these days to not talk about COVID and how it affected you. But I mean, it sounds like it kind of decimated the race team anyway. But how did Squid survive? And I guess is COVID mostly in the rear view for you guys? Are you guys looking forward to building the race team again? And what's up with the brand?
Yeah, it without there being, obviously there was so much up in the air, right, when COVID hit, and it was one of those things that, it was pretty obvious that there wasn't going to be a race season in 2020. Sammy was in school at that point and moving across the country, and we didn't have, guaranteed sponsors from for a program though there wasn't going to be racing and stuff. So it kind of just hit the pause button for everything, which was I think in a lot of ways actually really good. The team had again transformed a lot from what it originally was in the birth of the company to where the company was kind of just a little engine to help drive the team for a number of years and certainly started that way and eventually got bigger and bigger. And, my last couple of years certainly was very much splitting time between being at the shop versus like putting time into training, and has gotten to the point where it's like, it's a company now that also has a bike team. And it's great. It's really cool. It definitely it wasn't how it started. And it's cool that it's evolved into that.
Yeah.
So I think COVID really made that pretty obvious, because then it was like, okay, we still have athletes that we work with, but without the racing, that is what the, kind of how the brand started. Mm-hmm. It's given us an opportunity, I think, hit the pause button, and we've never wanted to have a team just for the sake of having a team. It was kind of always about finding athletes that we wanted to support. And, that's really easy when it's you and you're really close friends. Yeah, but we didn't want to just, pick out who looked like the best upcoming rider without any connection to the brand. That is, again, a large reason why we decided to work with Anthony, was that he fit what the brand was about so well. So it gave us an opportunity to kind of hit the pause button and do some reevaluating, and, with everyone spending time at home, re-engage a little more in the local scene. We've been spending so much time and energy on the UCI circuit and the World Cup circuit and abroad. Looking to kind of, when we first started, we had 5 or 6 bikes that were just kind of cobbled together cyclocross bikes for, local roadies or even people that didn't ride bikes. So like, hey, come out and ride these bikes on the dirt and come to our Wednesday night pickups and see what this is all about. And we were able to bring in some new riders to the sport who, again, they don't have to be great racers by any means, but just getting people out there and being like, hey, this is really fun. And so we're looking forward to re-engaging with that kind of more grassroots efforts and connecting with the local community, and have plans to put on more free races this summer and that kind of stuff. So I think it's actually been really good. I think we very much are interested in supporting riders at the high level if we have riders that makes sense for. But being pretty cognizant of not forcing it just for the sake of forcing it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me that there's been a lot of, especially smaller brands, I would say, and I guess you guys fit into that. I mean, I don't want to make the assumption, but it seems like you guys are kind of a smaller company, and it seems like a lot of smaller bike companies or bike-related companies are really making a transition from, trying to appeal to that race crowd to more of a community feel. And I feel like, so I read an interview, Emily, that you did a few years ago, where you said that you were getting frustrated with sort of how conservative and staid the nature of the bike industry was, which was part of the reason you guys started Squid in general. Have you seen that change over the years, or is it still pretty stuffy to you? Is it still pretty conservative and staid?
I feel like it's gotten a little better. I feel like people are at least talking about it a little bit more. I think this summer has had a lot to do with all the social justice being kind of like more front and center. Mm-hmm. And now recently with everything that's going on in Arkansas and the anti-trans legislation. So I think that it's hard for me to be able to talk about the racing because I haven't been there in a couple of years. But I do feel like it's more on people's radar. And, Chris being a minority in the biking industry and myself as a female, there's 2 of us who aren't your typical faces of being owners of bike companies. Right. So I don't know. I guess I do. I feel like social media in some ways has helped that because it's I feel like it more easily allows people to have a platform to share what's going on. So I am hopeful that it's changing a little bit. I think, change, especially meaningful change, is always really slow. Yeah.
What about you, Chris? How has your view of the industry evolved over the course of owning Squid Bikes and understanding that you guys are doing something so differently that it kind of makes you I don't want to say a target, but, you stand out. And so, people maybe expect certain aesthetic values from you guys. I mean, have you seen that change in the industry? Have you seen a shift, or does it still feel like you're pretty much an outsider looking in at an old white guy sort of sport?
I mean, for sure. I think there's been a huge change in the aesthetic within cycling. Like in 2012, 2013, like I feel like half the bikes were black with red, and then the other half were red with black.
Right.
Not on the bike
you can see one right behind me.
But yeah, no, it's like now you see like the same thing with kits. Like the pro kits have gotten like I think a lot more fun. Like a lot of the inline like clothing that companies are putting out is like getting more flashy, which is cool. It's like nice to see everything get more playful because it's like I mean I think there's still like a huge chunk of the industry that takes cycling very seriously and like that's cool, but for most people, like for people who do it for recreation, like it doesn't have to be so like hard line like
Yeah.
this is serious business like doom gloom and pain. Like I mean I like bike racing pain as much as the next person, but it's like there's a time and place for it. Like
I certainly think the aesthetic has changed a lot since Squid came on the scene. I think we were very much an outlier when we first started the company, and I feel like maybe it's us just seeing our place in it, but I do feel like bikes are now they're cooler paint jobs, they're more colorful. And I think, like Chris said, I think the aesthetic of cycling clothing has changed a lot. When we first started putting kits out, it was like, oh my gosh, there's no logos on the kits. Like this is revolutionary. And now it's there's a lot of I think a lot of the low hanging fruit is gone. There's a lot more effort I think being put into the design in cycling fashion and just in terms of like the aesthetic of what the bikes look like. So and I think that Squid has pushed that needle in the industry.
Yeah, and I think that was my next question. Is you talk about bike culture, and it's worth mentioning that there are so many different little like micro factions of bike culture. I mean, there's mountain bikers, there's gravel riders, there's road riders. I mean, and then everybody has their own different flavor, right? Squid seems to sort of hover above all of those groups, and I think your aesthetics are very specifically challenging a lot of the images in all of those little micro factions. What exactly is Squid's aesthetic telling the bike industry writ large? I mean, what is the message you guys are trying to convey to them? Like, stop being so stuffy. I mean, I think there is a big population of people who are ready for that, but also, splatter paint is a tough one for a lot of people, even who are looking for something new to swallow. I mean, so like, what is your overall or overarching message to the industry with what you're doing at Squid?
I think that rather than like a message to the industry, we never went in being like, hey, we want to show these people this or whatever. It was always more just like, I don't want to ride that bike. It's ugly. I'm just going to make my own bike. It isn't ugly. And tried to always recenter in what feels like genuine and true to us and almost like block out what everything else that's going on. It's like, I don't care what the rest of the industry is doing. Again, when we started, it wasn't even like, I mean, we obviously started a company, but it was never with the goal of trying to be part of the industry, if that makes sense. It was always just like, hey, we're going to go over here and do our thing. And then like every year it was like, I don't know, people seem to be connecting with it. I guess we'll just keep doing it. So I think that because of us, the industry has reacted, but I mean, to be honest, I don't really pay that much like interest or attention to that kind of stuff. Like I don't read the industry news. We just kind of do our thing and I think people again have reacted and stuff, but I don't know. I basically kind of mostly try not to pay attention. And I think that in terms of what is the Squid aesthetic, I think that there's always been bike painters that have done amazing paint jobs. And, I think that we certainly weren't the first to do splatter paint on a bike and that kind of stuff. One of the things I think Squid is known for and maybe marks the brand and has kind of helped us kind of stay out of it a little bit, like you were saying, is the spray paint part of it. Is that it's like we were definitely the first company that came in, to my knowledge, that said, hey, these bikes are intended to be spray painted. Like, this is the point of this bike. And in addition to, like, being like, okay, well, you could paint a bike that looks exactly like a Squid with a custom painter, but it's going to cost you, a lot of money. And not knocking the custom painters at all. They're great at what they do. It's just different than what we're telling people to do. But, inherent is like, it's spray paint. Like, your bike is going to get scratched. And, you have to be okay with that level of imperfection, I guess, and the fact that it is a tool, and like Chris was saying, like not taking it too seriously because it's not a $3,000 paint job. It's a $150 paint job that was done with spray paint. It still looks cool. So it's almost more of an irreverence that I feel like comes from genuinely how we ride bikes and how we see it than us trying to like make a space for ourselves in the industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Chris, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like, do you can even consider yourselves part of the industry as a term? Or is it to you guys, is it just yours? Is the Squid is just entirely yours and that's, you're doing something for a specific purpose, and whether or not you're part of the industry is really irrelevant.
Yeah, I feel like we're for sure part of the industry. Like, I think some of that is like just like that we interact with other brands, and like we have involvement in different levels of the industry as well, like whether it's racing, manufacturing, just selling products to retail customers. But I think a lot of like we've always just done kind of whatever felt natural, and so that's nice to be kind of separate from like working another position within the industry where it's like there is a corporate like message, and there is no corporate message. We have no corporate message. We don't have a mission statement. Like, because it's very like the pathway has always been very natural. It's like there's three of us. At one point there was four of us, and we would just literally go have meetings by the river. And it's like, this is what we've got going right now. This is like the most we like look ahead usually is like 18 months. It's like those have gone out more and more. There's timetables as we like have to look at longer production schedules and things like that. But we've got no shareholders we have to appease. There's no one else gets to really like dictate things. It's like it's been that way even like with the bikes we make, where it's like obviously we want to cater to our customer base a bit, but ultimately like we sell the bikes that we want to ride, and that's always been I think a big driving message from the get-go from Paul Price from Paul Components is the one who told us to do that, is like make bikes your friends want to ride.
Yeah.
And that's always been like 100%. Like the bikes we design and build are all bikes that like we want to ride. That's almost every single time. Like even the bikes themselves, it's like we feel like there's some kind of thing we want to do, and we don't have the tool for that. So like, hey, that's the next thing we're going to make, is because this is something we physically want for ourselves. So we assume that there's other people out in the world who also want it. So far, we've been right. Like
that helps. That helps when you're running a business.
We would always like rather bring more people into the sport than like try to take a slice of the pie that's already there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Expand the audience rather than try to fight over the few that are here.
Right, exactly. It's like I don't want to do the fighting for scraps. Like I'd rather just go find a new market, like bring more people into bikes.
Totally. I'm gonna ask you guys both the what I like to call the can of worms question to end the show here. Briefly, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the bike industry, what would it be?
Definitely just making it more inclusive, having it be like, bikes are so friggin' awesome. Like they're such awesome, like relatively simple tools that like, certainly have made my life better, have made my friends' life better, all kinds of, and they are useful in obviously bringing water to people across the world. You know what I mean? Like they're just amazing tools that span this breadth of what they can be used for. And I wish that the industry itself, and in particular the racing stuff, was more representative of the fact that they're just such a universal tool, and that they're should be beneficial in everyone's lives, and that the industry could get more on board and find a better way to kind of cater to that.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I think we've that's been a bit like something that we've started to try and work towards a bit with changing. That's a big catalyst for why we started making bikes in Taiwan, and instead of just entirely in the U.S., because we wanted to be able to offer bikes at a lower price point to expand access to like people who because I think that was the case for quite a while, where there's we had like bikes that people connected with, but they couldn't afford. And that was like a really tough thing to swallow for a while, I think.
Yeah.
It's like we had friends who couldn't buy our bikes.
Right.
they're expensive.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's ultimately like, that's going to be a problem forever because it's like materials are just expensive. But
Right.
yeah, it helps to like be able to offer products at different price points to try and make at least our brand more accessible.
That was Chris Namba and Emily Kachorek. I keep screwing up your last name. I'm so
That's
sorry.
close enough.
Was it?
That's close enough. Kachorek.
In my head, I say it Kachorek, so it's like I have to like adjust now. It's Kachorek, right?
That's what most people who like have just read it. That's how they
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll give it to you. You got to
Okay,
pass.
thanks. All right, sweet. I get a mulligan here. Guys, where can people find you on the social medias?
Squid Bikes on Instagram, on Twitter, and now on TikTok.
Whoa. That blows my old man mind. I don't understand
Yeah,
TikTok.
yeah. That was a recent addition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about if you guys want to, personally, your Instagram accounts, do you want to blast those out there?
Yeah, I'm Kachorek, Emily Elaine Kachorek, and
Yeah, I'm Nomika, Nommeke, on Instagram.
On the grams.
On the grams.
And if you guys if you're listening out there and you have any questions for either Emily or Chris, you are welcome to reach out to them on the social medias. And if you have a question for me, you can reach me at BrownTieDan on Twitter and Instagram. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to to hear any recommendations for people you would like me to interview on another episode. Emily and Chris, thanks very much for joining me today. It was super fun to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, and we will catch you guys all on the next episode of In the Garage. Slow Guy on the Fast Ride. We are signing out.